My name is Tania Ramirez, Drug Policy Director in Mexico United Against Crime, and I'm going to present you the results of a new briefing paper called Medicinal Cannabis Policies and Practices Around the World. The global debate about cannabis regulation has intensified in recent years, and jurisdictions have increasingly amended their legislation to allow for the medicinal or therapeutic use of the plant. Various countries around the world have enacted policies that enable patients to access certain types of preparations to alleviate symptoms, reduce pain, or improve their quality of life. Although all these experiences can be considered as progress, not all regulatory regimes are equal and not all reforms will have the same impact. All in all, there are a diversity of experiences, approaches, and directions, and no international or regional standard currently exists. The existing experiences can be categorized as follows. 1. Individual cases defended in the courts which set precedents, as in Mexico and Canada. 2. Direct democratic processes, like in several U.S. states. 3. Legislative and public policy processes, such as in Uruguay and other U.S. states. And 4. Companies developing medicinal cannabis, for example, in the U.K. Well, the wide range of responses may be economically liberal, like in the US, or profoundly statist in the case of Uruguay. The experiences also differ with regards to defining medicinal use, the types of products considered as medicines, where the cultivation for personal use is allowed, and other factors. Also, even in cases of medicinal regulation, other forms of cannabis use remain prohibited, like sacramental use only allowed in Jamaica and recreational use only permitted in Uruguay and some US states. Other countries are at the initial stage of the discussion, with proposed legislation under consideration in places like Costa Rica, Cyprus, Luxembourg, and South Africa. Latin America is currently the world leader in the promotion and adoption of policies allowing access to cannabis for therapeutic uses, in countries like Uruguay, Colombia, Jamaica, and Brazil. Argentina, Peru, and Mexico have also adopted other, less ambitious regulatory processes. The United States and Canada may be the most advanced countries in the development of a medicinal cannabis industry. In the US, 29 states currently have a legislation allowing medicinal cannabis use. In Europe, alongside the Netherlands, the past year has seen the adoption of various medicinal cannabis schemes, in particular in Greece, Poland, and Slovenia. Asia continues to be at the forefront of repressive drug policies, and medicinal cannabis remains prohibited in many countries. However, there have been positive developments in several countries of the region, such as in India and Thailand. Regarding Oceania, there have been significant developments in Australia and New Zealand on medicinal cannabis front in recent years as well. Among the country examples, there's a wide range of mechanisms available to ensure access to medicinal cannabis. First, special individual licenses to import and use medicinal cannabis while maintaining overall provisions over the plant, like in Poland. Second, regulation of supply through the creation of a license system, for example in Colombia and Peru. Third, regulation of demand with mechanisms allowing legal access to medications through self-cultivation, cannabis clubs, postal orders, selling clinics, or selling pharmacies, like in Uruguay for recreational and by default medicinal use. And fourth, the design and implementation of public policies that regulate access to certain products in compliance with the regulatory system in place for medicines, for example in Germany. Mexico represents a particular case because despite of the reforms, effective access to medicines for patients is not a reality yet. After an individual famous case defended in the courts, the Congress approved reforms to the General Health Law and the Criminal Code in 2017 to allow the use of cannabis for medicinal and scientific purposes. The Ministry of Health was ordered to issue a public policy on the matter to ensure that patients have access to pharmacological products with and without THC. Nevertheless, after a year, regulations have not been released yet, and patients can get access to medicines. It is a good example that a law reform does not always represent an immediately step forward in this subject. The information available makes possible to outline the following recommendations. Legalize cannabis for medicinal use and not solely limiting access for a few arbitrarily determined illnesses. Immediately include medications in the basic range of medicines, that is, without the need for judicial actions requiring the state to do so, and avoiding also the high cost that individual importation of such medications could involve. Create and allocate budget to ensure the constant generation of scientific research. Coordinate all relevant agencies that allow new medications to reach the market quickly. Always ensuring the highest possible standards for consumer health protection. Establish the mechanisms necessary to avoid the creation of monopolies or specific groups having the patents to the detriment of the health and economic welfare of the general population. Include the patients in the decision-making process. Offer technical assistance to physicians. Implement campaigns for the general public and patients on medicinal cannabis. And every legislative measure should include domestic regulations for productions rather than be limited to the importation of products. Small-scale farmers involved in cannabis cultivation for subsistence purposes should be also involved in the decision-making process. And finally, although the INCB has recognized the medicinal properties of cannabis, we strongly recommend to not only use very biased data on the supposed negative effects of legalization in the US from only one source, which sometimes are presented as if they were facts, albeit they are not. And to conclude, I would like to invite you to read this new paper, which is available in the IDPC website and in the MUCD website. Thank you so much for this space, and thank you for your attention.